Oops.
Martin, you're on mute.
Okay. Hi. Hi, and karibuni once again to another show. Thank you for making time to join us this evening as we talk about another interesting topic, a topic that is real, a topic that we can, each one of us, I believe, can relate to in one way or the other, or knows somebody, or has heard of somebody. First, before we've even started this show, once we distributed the post yesterday and today, was there is so much to talk about. If we can have a second show on the same topic next week, so let's see how that goes. So today's topic is mental health. Mental health includes emotional, physical, social well-being. It affects how we think, feel, and act. It also helps determine how we handle stress, relate to others, and make choices. Mental health is important at every stage of life, from childhood and adolescence through adulthood. Today with us, we have Annabelle Gishure, we have Michelle Ascott, and we have Dr. Lawrence Nderi, our host, the man himself, Waweru Njoroge, familiar face. And behind on the controls today, we have Evans Onchana with us. For those watching us live on YouTube or Facebook, you can ask questions, make comments, and we can bring them up on screen. We value your contributions, especially on such a topic. You can also follow us via our Twitter and Facebook handles. That's at Gr8leadership Live, and 8 is number 8. Or email us at greatleadershiplive@gmail.com. So, Waweru, how has the week been?
Yes, sir. It's been an interesting start to the week, that's for sure. But it's good. We're looking forward to a very good week and a very good show as well.
Yeah. Sema.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to kick off as usual. I'm going to kick off the usual way we usually do. First of all, by saying thank you very much to our guests for making the time to join us this evening on Great Leadership Live. This is episode 17. We're making it there slowly. And of course, as Martin has introduced, we're talking about mental health. And I'd like to ask our guests to very briefly introduce themselves, a bit of their background, and then we can kick off the show. So I'm going to start, ladies first. I'm going to start with Annabelle, then move to Michelle, and finally we'll finish with Dr. So Annabelle, just give us a big background of who you are.
Thank you. Thank you for the invite. My name is Annabelle Gishure, Director, Transform Generations Africa. I'm a child coach and a child psychologist. I majorly deal with children to enhance their productivity and to also empower them and transform them by bringing out their innate strengths. Thank you. I look forward to the conversation.
Thanks, Annabelle. Michelle.
Hi, I am a life coach for both adults and children, and I'm also a mental wellness specialist with a background in psychology. I work with children to empower them so that they're the leaders of their own lives, and support adults to reach their potential, and also help people to be mentally healthy, particularly through coaching, but also through mindfulness, as I'm a mindfulness practitioner as well. Thank you for the invite, and I look forward to an interesting discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, Michelle, did you say mind commerce?
Mindfulness.
Oh, mindfulness.
coach.
I thought
Yeah.
you said mind commerce. I was like, okay, that's an interesting one. I've never heard that.
That
before.
sounds quite interesting. Maybe that's a future career, mind commerce.
Yeah, I'll coin that soon. Daktari, please let us know who you are and what you do.
Hello, my name is Dr. Lawrence Nderi. I am a clinician, practicing psychiatrist. I work at the National Referral Hospital, that is Mathare, here at Muthaiga. I also work at the Division of Mental Health at the Ministry of Health headquarters, and I also run a part-time private practice, and also on the part-time I teach psychiatry. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Actually, I'm going to stick with you, Dr. Ari. I want to ask this question to you first. A lot of people tend to confuse mental health, or rather, mental health is all-encompassing, but then it tends to now drive into the side of mental illness, which is what most people tend to refer to when they say mental health. I'd like to get your perspective on what the difference is between mental health and mental illness.
Thank you very much. First of all, we talk of health. We start with health. And health is a state whereby you are mentally, physically, and socially well, okay? It's not just the absence of disease, just means you're complete. Now, when you talk about mental health, this is a state in which a human being or an individual, they're able to realize their own full potential. They're able to cope with the stresses of life and can work productively, and they are able to make a contribution to their society or community in one way or another. But when you talk about mental illness, illness specifically refers to a clinical condition, a condition that has been diagnosed by a doctor. So those are two different things. So illness is specifically a diagnosed clinical condition, whereas health is just the ability to be able to socialize and interact and live normally with the kawaida stresses of life.
Okay, Michelle, I want to ask this question to you. What are some of the attributes that have been found to be associated with mental health? Put another way, what are the determinants of mental health?
Okay, so if you're talking about mental healthiness, then the determinants of that are, for example, the lifestyle that you lead. This can be connected to things like sleep. Sleep is an important factor. Healthy eating is very important. Are we exercising? Are we also pursuing our purpose? Because there's a lot of research on the fact that more positive people are people who are living on purpose. So all these factors, there's other factors as well, all these factors together can help a person to be mentally healthy. So it's really important that we consider how we live our lives daily. I do a virtual program, and it's a 30-day program, because we say we do things for 30 days, we create a habit, and when we do it for 3 months, we create a lifestyle. And it's a mental wellness challenge, and it encompasses many things, and always the first thing is gratitude. So gratitude is a very important attribute to being mentally well, because what you're doing, the mind is naturally negative, because the mind is constantly looking out for danger. So it means that we're predisposed to be negative. But with our knowledge of neuroscience and things like that, we know that we can retrain our brain and fire up the synapses and create new neural pathways. So if we can practice gratitude daily and make it a habit, it's a really good way of helping us to be a lot more positive. And positivity is a big contribution to being mentally healthy.
Okay, cool. So I'm showing my gratitude for all of you for being on the show. So my mental health now is getting better. Anyway, I just. Annabelle, what disorders are most commonly associated with mental health?
All right, thank you. I would take the approach of our society. We have depression in our society right now. Depression is a common disorder. People consider it as a disorder. Then we have bipolar, whereby you have elevated moods, hopelessness, loss of interest, and you also engage in risk-taking behaviors. And then we have anxiety disorders, which can be manifested in irritability, excessive worry, insomnia. And the most important that we have right now is the psychosomatic disorders. That is your mental. Let me give an example. Most people tend to have headaches, but the headache is not caused. The headache is caused by a stressor. So the stressor is manifested physically through physical illness. That is a psychosomatic disorder. And the last one is OCD, which is obsessive compulsive disorder. I would say those are the main psychological disorders that are manifested in our society currently.
Okay, I just want to, as a follow-up, and I want to ask Dr. this. What are the signs of problematic mental health?
Oh, well, when you talk about mental health, it encompasses very many fields of our day-to-day living. Most of it depends on which mental health we are talking about, but many a times we'll find that when people have problems with mental health, they will present with such signs as problems with sleep. Others will have problems with appetite. Either they are eating too much or they are not feeding as would have been expected. Others will just be irritable. Then you will have problems with personality. People who isolate themselves, they don't want to interact. So you'll notice a change in behavior of somebody, mood swings, then anger issues. You'll find that people, maybe someone does not want to go to work. They're always complaining of funny things, like they're always feeling tired, they're always feeling fatigued. And then you'll find such things as others will have this constant worry. They cannot focus, they cannot concentrate. So everything just becomes everywhere. And what you'll find that many a times, most of them will not be able to actually to identify that they have a mental illness, but the people around them can be able to tell that this person is not acting in their usual manner. They have become more irritable lately. They look unkempt. They don't want to take care of themselves. You find somebody does not want. They're just shaggy. They don't want to take a shower, and they just become careless. So depending on the kind of illness, the symptoms vary, but with the ones that I've mentioned encompass most of the disorders that we will see. Thank you.
Something that Annabelle had mentioned, which I was just thinking, with regards to when you're saying that people don't feel like they want to go to work and they're feeling lazy or they don't want to do something, yes. They don't want to get engaged. How much is that affected by one's environment? Like she was saying about stresses, triggers, in terms of, would that be aspects of poverty, the loss of a loved one, things like that?
Environmental factors have a big role to play in terms of development of mental illness. So sometimes you will find that you might be biologically predisposed. That means maybe it has been running in your family, but then that is not enough to make you develop a mental illness. So sometimes you find the social stressors and the environmental factors come into place. So whereby somebody who has already been predisposed, let's say, to something like depression, and then you find that they have a lot of stress at the workplace. Okay, or if it's a marriage situation, there's so much stress involved there. There's a toxic environment in school or wherever you are. Then this one now triggers the development of a mental illness. So yes, it is true that environment plays a big role and is something that actually is very important into the onset of one's mental illness.
Okay, thanks, Dr. Michelle, I want to come back and just pick up sort of where Dr. left off and ask this question about how does mental health actually, or how can mental health actually affect a person's job?
Okay, so, I mean, as we were saying, when things start to get a bit too much, when things start to sort of take over, connected with our mental health, it can make it really difficult to focus at work. So if we're talking about mental health, we're talking, for example, about stress. So if we're, for example, highly stressed, then it's going to be much harder for us to interact with our colleagues, to be able to concentrate, to not misread situations. So it's really affecting how we do our job. It's affecting our interactions with our colleagues and our customers, obviously depending on what we're doing. And basically, we're not performing as well as we could do if we were, mentally healthy. So it has a real knock-on effect. I mean, we all know, in terms of mental health, if we look at it on a continuum, we all fluctuate. That's what we're talking about when we talk about mental health. So we have good days and we have bad days. We're human. So some days we're going to feel, on top of the world. Other days we're going to feel, maybe sad or maybe stressed. So, it's just imagining how we see the world. When we're feeling happy and bright and everything's positive, then our whole persona, our interactions are completely different to if we're feeling sad or stressed or burdened. I mean, just think about how you are on your bad days versus how you are on your good days. And you can see a difference in your productivity. And maybe if you don't, then it can be an issue, becomes a burden to you, and then perhaps you take it home with you, because people manifest stress in many different ways. So, if we're coping on the surface all right at work, we could be carrying that home, and then it can be manifesting in other ways, not just in the workplace.
Okay, I'm sure there's a lot of wives now looking at their husbands thinking, that's why I know. Okay, Annabelle, I want to ask this question to you. How does mental health affect physical health?
All right, thank you. The greatest, I would say, of all is the sense of loss of self. And I would explain it with an experience I went through. As a child, I went through body shaming, and a random boy in class actually told me, "You actually look so chubby, you don't look good." That affected my education. Back then I was a teenager, and it also affected how I related with men, because the person who actually body shamed me was a boy. And from then henceforth, I lost a sense of my identity, a sense of my worth, and I got into depression. I got into depression as a teenager, and later on, I tried to trace my way back with the help of a mentor and a counselor. So I would say, how does it affect the physical health? It affects let me cut it short with you lose a sense of yourself, which makes you not able to relate with others. So your relationship are altered, and also your body concept is also altered, which leads to the relationship with the third parties being altered. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Annabelle. Daktari, I want to come back to you. Something I was just looking at and thinking, fine, I can tell how well I'm doing in school by taking a test. I can find out whether I have a cold or a disease by taking a test. How does one test one's mental health?
Let me just start by saying that there is no specific test for mental health, okay? So usually what we look out for are the signs and symptoms of somebody who is disturbed. So the best thing would be, number one, if there's a change in behavior of somebody that alludes to the symptoms that we had talked about before, let's say you've had somebody who you have seen, they are more irritable than usual, or they look stressed out more than usual, they are angry all the time, then, or somebody who suddenly was looking good, but nowadays they come to work, the shirt is not ironed, they have not combed their hair. Sometimes you look at them and then you wonder, has this guy even woken up, and things like when you look at this mood, somebody who is always moody, if you are with somebody in the house, they are not sleeping well, then things like appetite, food, they are not eating properly. Those are the things that make you, they are the red flags, basically, that will let you know now that things are not okay here. So what do you do in case you find such a thing? Now, this is where you need to go and look for professional help. Take somebody to a psychologist, take them to a mental health practitioner, to a psychiatrist. So when they talk with the individual, then they are able to determine which kind of problem this person may be suffering from. So let's say somebody is suffering from depression or anxiety. Then once we are there, when we suspect that it is depression or anxiety, then that's the time we have things we call psychometric tests. We can administer a few tools, and through interviewing, you know, most of the work of psychiatry and mental health is about one-on-one discussions. Okay, so I take you through a series of an interviews, many times not even in one sitting, a number of sittings. I get to understand your life, how where you've come from, and what is disturbing you at that point in time. Then from there, now we are able to have a pointer towards what may be ailing you, and then we can take you through some bit of tests. So it's something like depression, we have scales that we use. If it's something like anxiety, but the best at any given time is you have a one-on-one discussion with your psychologist or your psychiatrist or a mental health practitioner. They will be able to pick out these signs and symptoms and be able to tell you that if you need help or not. Some will just require you to maybe adjust your lifestyle, but some situations where you end up with a diagnosed condition, then you might need treatment in terms of drugs and psychotherapy. So there's nothing like a specific test for mental health. Okay, so once you notice the red flags, the best thing would be contact a mental health practitioner. They'll be able to guide you. Yes.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Michelle, good to have you back. We seem to have lost you for a bit there. I'm going to ask a question to everybody after this, but I just want to probably expound on what Annabelle had said, just get it from a different perspective from Michelle, and ask, does mental health impact the body's ability to get well? I suppose this aspect of it is in the mind, the spirit, and everything related, interlinked. Michelle?
Sorry, can you repeat the question, please? Can you repeat the question?
Okay, the question is, does mental health impact the body's ability to get well? Yeah, healthy mind, healthy body, healthy mind, healthy spirit. Does that kind of interlinked, where if your mind is not in the right place, then your body will not, I suppose, endorphins or whatever that is that help you get better?
So because if you are feeling negative, if you are feeling sad and depressed, then
Waweru, let's go to someone else for now.
Okay, let me.
I think. Oh. Yeah.
Okay, let's try and get Michelle back. In the meantime, then let me come back to Annabelle and ask you this question. What are the actual? I suppose it ties into what I was trying to ask to Michelle. What are actually the benefits of good mental health?
Okay, thank you. The benefits of good mental health is you're able to have the right self-concept, which is your esteem and your level of self-awareness are at par, which makes you productive in all areas of your life. May it be family, may it be your job, may it be yourself. You're productive. Your productivity is visible in all the areas. And then you're able to create relationships, and you're able to create, not only create, but maintain relationships with yourself and with others. And when you have a good built mental health, you're able to keep up with your stressors, and you're able to cope with your environment, and you're able to cope with the positive and the negative stressors. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to bring in Daktari, and I want to keep you on this question as well, Annabelle. And obviously, it relates to what the president is hoping people are gonna. People are hoping the president will announce tomorrow that the bars are open, but that's not the relevance. It relates more to COVID-19 in terms of how has COVID-19 impacted mental health in Kenya. I'm going to start specifically, generally, in terms of Kenya, and then if you can, maybe expound on how it's affected children as well, because children are social creatures, and now they're being told they have to learn from home, and they're not able to physically interact with people. How does that then affect them? So let's start at the general level. How has COVID-19 impacted mental health generally across the board in Kenya? And then let's dig deeper in terms of how it's affected children. Daktari, please, you go ahead.
Okay, all right. So, as we may all have realized, mental health has been on the forefront ever since this pandemic started. What we do know is that this thing was not anticipated in the first place, and it came with a lot of new things. You know, human beings are social beings. We are used to interactions, and when all of a sudden you tell people that you cannot move, you cannot go to church, you cannot go to the bar, you cannot go to your favorite kiosk, it affects people negatively. So most of the people do not know how to deal with this thing of not going to church. Then you're told you can't even move out of your house. Then you're told that you can't even go to visit your neighbor. And if you have to maintain a distance. So a lot of people had a lot of problems in how to cope with this situation. Then all of a sudden, you're telling people now you're used to working. You have to now remain at home. So whether you're working from home, or most of the people we know, they lost their jobs. There were a lot of downscaling in a lot of businesses. So a lot of people were pushed into depression. We had a lot of people who were pushed into anxiety. You know, the fear of the unknown. You don't know what to expect for tomorrow. So we saw an increase in the cases of mental illness that were being reported all around. And generally, you will find that, you know, even if you look at some of these situations, even the cases of even domestic violence went up, even in our own country and all over the world. You are all of a sudden in the house with your wife, and you know, sometimes you have been so used to work and you don't know what is happening in your family. And when, as a husband, you're seated down in the house, this is the time you start noticing every small thing, and you start correcting, and you know, all of a sudden chaos just erupt in the house. So there was a lot of increase even in domestic and partner violence. And kids, you have kids now, you know, it's very difficult to tell toddlers not to play. And then, you know, school at least keeps them busy. But now here you're left with your young ones, and you're telling them they can, you know, if you look at our situation in the country, most of us do not have big backyards where you can tell the children that you can go back there and play on the lawn or the backyard. Or a lot of people do not have these things like PlayStations and video games and internets that sometimes can be able to keep the children busy. So you find yourself stuck with kids in the house, and you don't know how to handle them. And they are a bunchful. So the levels of stress rise in the parents. So you find all of a sudden the mother is irritable, the father is irritable. You take it out on the kids, they affect them, they also become very irritable. So for the kids, it has been especially hard because, you know, especially if you have the very young kids that you cannot explain to them the concept of a pandemic. And how corona, what is this thing, what is this monster that you're calling corona that makes me not go outside to ride a bicycle, to go outside and play? It is a bit of a challenge for most parents. So we have seen the stress levels even in children rise. And you know, with kids, kids may not be able actually to express themselves when they have issues. So instead, they tend to act out, and you'll find a child all of a sudden they started regressing, and maybe the parents may not even understand what is happening. But generally, what we know is the pandemic has led to an increase in mental illnesses. When you tell people who are used to drinking daily not to go to a bar, the next thing that comes about is withdrawal symptoms. So we were finding people going all over looking for illicit brew, because all of a sudden you're told now the bars are closed, and there are people who must unajua kutoa lock. You must have your morning eye opener, and it's no longer available. So in the hospitals, we had a rise of people with withdrawal symptoms because of substance use, and cases of depression, cases of anxiety, and basically across almost all mental illnesses, we saw an increase because of this pandemic. And that constant fear of, is it going to affect me? Is this disease coming to get me? Everybody was afraid. That constant fear led to a lot of chaos. Yeah.
Okay, Michelle, welcome back. I'd like to put the same question. We're just asking all our panelists at the moment in terms of how COVID-19 has actually affected mental health in Kenya. Daktari has expanded on it quite a bit, but I wanted to get your take on it. Then, Annabelle, I'm going to come to you.
Okay, so in terms of how it's impacted mental health, I have never been so busy. From March the 14th up until I'd say last month, I have just been inundated with clients, and in particular parents with their children. So a lot of them are having great difficulty with the online learning platform. Schools have done as much as they can, and I take my hat off to those teachers. I once was a teacher, so I know how hard teaching is anyway. And then to have to change within like 2 days for the schools that did go online, just turn it around like that, I commend them. So I did a lot of work with teachers, and they were under a huge amount of stress. So they were really themselves suffering, as they had to convert to a new platform and try and keep their children engaged and just work out how to teach in the situation that they were in. Because not only were they having to teach full time, a lot of those teachers were in a situation where they themselves were also online teaching their own children. And then all the other issues that we all had to face, particularly at the beginning of the pandemic. So it was a very stressful time. And I was dealing with a lot of stressed teachers, and I worked with a lot of schools to support the teachers to be as mentally well and mentally healthy as they could be at that time. And then, as I said, I had many parents ringing me and seeing their children virtually to support them with anxiety, manifesting itself through, tummy aches, misbehavior, acting out, and feeling very stressed. Children who were naturally introverted were becoming more introverted, feeling very frustrated. And a big issue for a lot of children, particularly teenagers, was missing their peers. I mean, as we know, peers are so important to all of us, but particularly in your teenage years. So for a lot of children, they were really struggling with not being able to have that physical contact with their peers. Their whole world was changed in a day. Their whole world revolved around the playground and their friends and doing all the sports, and suddenly their world was turned upside down. So of course it was affecting them, and then manifested in things like sleep, not eating, withdrawing from their parents. So I saw a big increase in stress and anxiety, particularly at the beginning of COVID. And I think also it depends on the situation you're in. I mean, for children who are very young, perhaps in apartments, who maybe didn't have big gardens, then it can be very, very stressful. And I remember one parent saying to me that, because they're still in that early developmental stage, and so the child had got used to just being in home and just seeing the family. And then actually when they went out to the supermarket, the child was going crazy, you know, overstimulation, completely different. So a big impact on development. And the thing is, the research is not out yet. So a lot of it is also speculation, saying, you know, increasing stress and anxiety. But we will know in the future when the research comes in, what an impact. But at the moment, we can just see ourselves in terms of the clients that are coming to us, that there has been a real big increase. So it'd be very interesting to see the figures when they do come out. But definitely, there has been a huge impact, a negative impact on people's mental health, because we're going through a pandemic, a time of great change and uncertainty. So all of us, it was a very, you know, trying time.
Thanks, Michelle. Annabelle, please bring it home.
All right, thank you. I'll try not to repeat what Michelle and Daktari have said. And I would echo what UNICEF actually, I read in their research. This is a universal crisis, and for some children, the impact will be lifelong. And that is very true. And let me take a different angle. I've dealt with, I have a support group for children with disabilities. And I have actually seen the anxiety they're actually going through, looking at everything has transitioned to online. Most of them don't have the online gadget. And the ones that have, the parents, they were used to having a professional teacher or maybe a professional tutor in the school. Right now, the parent is supposed to take the role of the tutor. The professional tutor is also supposed to make ends meet. So they're playing two roles for the children. And you find these children, the anxiety hikes up and they are also depressed, but they're going to show it in different ways. For example, I was dealing with a child, a candidate, who actually asked me, when will this pandemic end? Because it looks like it's not going to end. That is the picture they have in mind. That is what is driving them. So that is the impact that COVID-19 has had on the children. I could say they are the hardest hit because they don't know what to expect, but they are following us, the adults, to lead the way. So I would call upon all parents, make the best out of this opportunity to support them through the process. Because if we do not, they are going to withdraw to themselves, and the question they would have asked you, they are going to answer it, and it's not going to be productive. Thank you.
Thanks, Annabelle. I'm just thinking also in the advent of what technology can actually do now, I suppose the impact would be much, much greater if we didn't actually have virtual classrooms and things like that. So yeah, we'll wait for the statistics to come out as Dr. I want to come back to you, and I want to ask this question. Is it true that people have more mental health issues these days, or are we just talking about it more?
Well, I would say yes and no at the same time. In this sense, it depends on what exactly are we talking about when it comes to mental health issues, okay? We know there are some mental illnesses or disorders that prevalence remains the same throughout the lifetime. So when you talk of things like schizophrenia, those ones then don't tend to change so much. But on the other hand, we know that there is an upsurge of some of the illnesses, things like substance use. You know, with changing times, we have seen more and more use of cannabis, the heroines, the cocaines, and alcohol generally, more than it used to be in the past. So yes, when you talk about things like substance use, when you talk about cases of depression, lifestyle, I don't know, do I say that lifestyle is becoming more and more difficult, or the challenges that we are facing every day are becoming more and more, and this shift of moving from rural to urban is creating a lot of concern. But things like depression, anxiety, and substance use, yes, those ones are on the rise. But then again, there is this thing is people nowadays are understanding about more and more about mental illness. The awareness and advocacy is going up. So basically, where people would initially see somebody talking to themselves and collecting rubbish on the streets and say, this is the work of the devil, or this one has been bewitched, or if you come from some areas in our country, I would say, aliangaliwa na macho mbaya by their fellow neighbor, they would attribute them to witchcraft and all this manner of things. But lately now, with the awareness and advocacy, people are understanding that some of these things that they used to see are actually signs and symptoms of mental illness. So yes, it's true, people now are talking more and more about it. We are glad that even in churches, many a times when you would see somebody behaving badly, in quotes, people would take them to the pastor, and pastors would pray for them, and they would say they have been possessed by demons and all manner of things. But we are glad now even that most of our faith leaders and spiritual leaders are understanding that at least there is some bit of distinction between spirituality and mental health. So we have seen a lot of referrals from even our spiritual leaders telling them, now we have prayed for you, and we think now after prayers, what you need to go is you need to go and visit a mental health practitioner. So we are talking about it more. So of course, when you talk about it more, people realize more, and then the cases come more. Okay. So that is how I would approach that question. Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Harry. I want to take a quick break, but my break is not going to be one of, usually we have videos or we have slides. I'm going to get one of our guests actually this evening to impart some knowledge in terms of preparing you for whatever you might be going through this coming week, or exercise that you will then be able to use going forward when you find yourself in situations where maybe your mental health is being compromised, whatever the case may be. So Michelle, I'm going to hand over to you because this is the first time I'm seeing it. So please take it away.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so very quick mindfulness activity. And when I'm talking about mindfulness, I'm talking about being in the moment. Mindfulness, there's so much research coming out just how effective mindfulness is. And it's simply because when in the moment, we're not worried about what's going to happen in the future and what happened in the past. So if we can just bring ourselves to the moment, it's a pause. And we'll find that when we come back to the situation we're in, we'll just feel so much better. So a very quick grounding exercise just to bring us back to the moment. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 is what it's called. So we're going to quickly do it together. All right. So 5 things that you can see around the room now. So just do that now. Look around the room and just clock 5 things that you can see. Just focusing on that.
Right.
4 things that you can feel. So just reach out in front of you and just feel 4 different things in front of you. And just think about how they feel as you touch them. So 4 things that you can feel. Now, 3 things that you can hear. Really focus in. What are the sounds that you can, 3 things that you can hear? Two things that either you can smell or you would like to smell. And finally, 1 awesome thing about you. That's the exercise. It's as simple as that. And I saw smiles on people's faces. A very simple, easy exercise to remember. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and ending with that lovely thing at the end where we're appreciating ourselves. So this is a great mood elevator, a great way to just pause and be in the moment. And if you're feeling stressed, do that. And if you can, go and do it in nature. It's even better. Do the exercise. You can see it takes 2 minutes of your time, and it just gives gives you a chance to pause, and it gives you that positive boost. So there you go. You've all experienced mindfulness today, grounding exercise. Thank you very much.
Just a quick one. And then, okay, Annabelle or Dr. if you want to ask Michelle about that, please go ahead. I want to find out, would that be a shorter version of meditation, or is it can actually replace meditation from that perspective?
So meditation simply means to focus on something quietly. So if you are yes, it could in theory be a form of meditation, because at that time you were focusing on things quietly. You were focusing on different, so in theory it could be seen, because so you're focusing on what you can see, what you can hear. So if we took that literal definition of meditation and being to focus on something quietly, then it could be extended to that. But I think big picture, it's a mindfulness activity, because mindfulness is being in the moment.
Okay, cool. Dr. Annabelle, how was that exercise for you?
Look at those smiles.
It was quite interesting. Maybe I just say, when you talk to psychologists, they make you do stuff that sometimes. One day I was talking to one and who told me to go and on top of KICC and scream. And I thought I thought this one was joking, but I actually did it, and it felt so nice. You're not going to the top of KICC and just screaming the loudest you can. And I thought, hey, people.
You know what you can do, Dr. Lawrence? Yes. I'm also a laughter yoga practitioner.
Yes.
But that's another topic of conversation. So an exercise that we do in that is a silent scream, and we can all do it together. So everybody just put your hands on your mouth like this and just do a silent scream. So you ready? After 3, a silent scream. 1, 2, 3. And that also is a stress reliever. So we might not always be able to go to the top of KFC. But maybe if we feel like we need to scream, then that's another way. So just doing a silent scream, doing it outside in nature makes it even more effective. But basically it's a reliever. It's just getting things out, So that's a great, thank you for sharing that.
Cool. Annabelle, do you want to add anything there?
For me,
okay, no. Okay.
Sorry, Annabelle?
Yes.
Okay, I wouldn't add anything, but I would love to appreciate Michelle. That actually helps. It has helped me connect with myself right now.
Yeah, and
my mind was everywhere, but right now I'm able to connect with myself.
And that's what it's about. Basically, we get stuck in the noise of life. I mean, we always have to find the silver lining. And, there's been silver linings of COVID. And I think one of the things is it's been a chance to connect and to slow down. Because previously, our lives were so busy and hectic, and there's so much noise. And this is why mindfulness is so effective, because it's just being in the moment, connecting with yourself, because we all have the answers within, but sometimes the noise is just so loud. So it's a way of coming into, and just so simple. So absolutely, Annabelle, I'm with you. And thank you as well.
Thank you, guys. This is now when we just step back. Me and Marta step back. We just let the guests, just have their own conversation, by all means. Dr. let me bring you back in, because the women are ganging up on you. My question to you is this, and okay, we're not going to take it back to not that wasn't serious. I think that was very helpful, especially for me as well. But I want to now look at the aspect of economics, actually. Why is investment in mental health given such low priority, especially in African countries?
Maybe I first start by saying, I don't think it's actually an African problem, because even if you move to the West and you look at the budgets of mental health, budgets of health generally, all over the world, mental health appears to be the one always given the least budget. Okay, but what we've known over time is the awareness in terms of mental health has always been low. And, people are always afraid of what they don't understand. Basically, a lot of people don't understand this concept of mental illness and mental health. And because of that, and mental health, unlike something like cancer, which people can obviously see and understand and has a direct, most of the other illnesses, when you look at something like malaria, you can identify a direct cause. They tend to be given much more priority than mental health. So when you look at the way it has been over time, the investment in mental health, because of that lack of understanding what mental health was all about, has always been low. But I must say that all over the world, the investment has started going up. If you look at WHO, from around 2015, 2016, they have actually made mental health a priority and asked a lot of governments to invest in mental health. A disease like depression, I think in the year 2016, depression was, I think, the third disease in the world causing disability. So you can imagine when you're talking about being the third in the world, we are talking of millions of people having been depressed, but not receiving proper care because of low investments. If you come back to our country, just as an example, you will find that if you ask people about mental illness, where they can find help, most of the people will only point you towards the hospital where I work, Madari. And beyond that, people cannot point out to you where else they can seek services for mental health. But if you ask somebody, if I am sick with diabetes or cancer, where can I get help? You will be referred to so many places. Okay?
Okay.
So I think it has to be a deliberate effort where we have to really create more awareness for mental health so that we can get proper funding and proper investment in terms of infrastructure, human resource. It's unfortunate in a country like Kenya where we, as of today, we are only talking of around, we think we are about 104 psychiatrists in a population of 50 million. And when you think about physicians, we can't even start, or gynecologists, we can't start counting them. So we need more and more investments in the field of mental health. People need to be aware. Sometimes it is us, the citizens, who have to put the government or the authorities to task and ask them, where are the investments? Why is it that it's only Madare that we can seek services for mental health? I'm glad with the devolution of health right now. People can go to their governors and ask, where can we get services for mental health in this county? And that way we will be able at least to move forward and avoid this thing of locking up people in houses. And there's a lot of stigma also associated with mental health. That's another reason why there has not been so much investment. The stigma has been so much, and people don't come out and talk about mental health openly. Not many people will tell you they're having depression. Not many people will tell you they're facing substance use problems. So, the problem again, when you talk about investments, we talk about data. Okay?
Right.
So when people are not coming out to say that I am ill, then you go to the hospitals, policymakers will tell you, show us the data to tell that this thing is a burden. But when people are not coming to hospital, either because of stigma or lack of awareness, then there's not so much data to show. Then you find that you're told, we don't have a lot of people who are sick with this illness. Then the funding also comes low.
Okay. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I'm going to switch gears now quickly. I want to ask Annabelle, what's the link or impact between social media and mental health? This is something we promised our viewers last week. We're going to tie into this show. So the question is, what is the link or impact between social media and mental health?
Yeah, social media has a great impact on mental health. For social media, people are trying to create an impression via the social media, and you find, let me use for example the people I deal with, the children. They're affected with a lot of body shaming from the social media and cyberbullying, which makes them it makes them have identity crises. So you find teenagers have suicidal ideation, and they engage in self-harm behaviors, or they also get into debt, trying to create an impression what is normal in social media, when actually in the real life maybe that is not their lifestyle, but they're trying to create an impression. So with that, they get into depression, they get anxiety. And for the adults, mostly as adults, we are also trying to create impression. And in summary, what I would view as, it's a broad topic, but the link between social media and mental health, self-esteem and human connection. We have to, for us to have better mental health, you have to have a good base of human connection. And through social media, your self-esteem is also, it's boosted through the social media. And if it is not at par with the real you, with the real concept of you, it drops back to you getting into getting mental health issues, which are represented by or manifested in the self.
Okay, thanks, Annabelle. I'm going to stick to the side of technology. I want to ask Michelle this question. Are mental health apps, I only found out when I was doing research for this show that there actually are things like mental health apps, but are mental health apps an effective alternative for when you can't afford therapy?
Okay, I mean, I think the first thing to consider is the fact that it's great that somebody is seeking support. So that's one of the most important things. The person acknowledging that they're struggling and that they're seeking help. I mean, that's one of the first sort of barriers with mental health, is people not talking about it. So we have to applaud that. There are many different apps. The problem is some of them have not been, research done, so we don't know how effective they are, but then there are some that have been. Another issue could be the fact that people could start self-diagnosing themselves. So we don't really want that. So I think it also depends on what the issue is. So maybe if it's just something that's a low-lying issue, then it's great with an app. But if someone's got a more complicated issue, then you cannot beat that face-to-face interaction. When I was thinking about this question, I was thinking about the apps that I know, and the ones that I know are the mindfulness apps, and they can be effective. You can listen to a meditation at night, it can relax you. So yes, there's some merit, but again, it's simplifying it. At the end of the day, we cannot beat that face-to-face interaction. That's going to be the best for everybody. But if for whatever reasons, because of money, because of geography and location, that person is not able to access, then this can be the most effective thing, because it's the journey, it's starting them, it's giving them some strategies. Because of time, mental illness and mental health is about managing. It's about managing your mental healthiness. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. I want you to now start winding up. I should have wound up, but this question is very relevant to try and close this conversation. I'm going to ask all of you this question. The question is, what advice would you give to the task force on mental health, which is inaugurated in December last year under the auspices of the Ministry of Health, in terms of creating greater awareness of and/or changing attitudes towards mental health? I'm going to start with you, Annabelle.
All right, thank you. I would summarize it with 2 points. First of all, we need to do more sensitization, and that is up to us as professionals, the psychologists and the psychiatrists, to actually do our part on creating the sensitization and creating the awareness. And the second one is improving the capacity and the policies of the mental health, which start from the leaders of the organization. Yeah, thank you.
Sorry, Annabelle, we lost you. Just what you said at the end. Just repeat what you said. I lost you at the end.
Okay, I said the first one is I take it as a challenge to us professionals, the psychologists and the psychiatrists, for us to create awareness and sensitization towards mental health in our own capacities. And the second one is for the leaders to improve the capacity of mental health, and the policy makers to also create policies that will bring change to the mental health. That means that the policy makers have to be experienced in that area of the mental health.
Okay, thanks, Annabelle. Dr. Same question to you.
Now, mine is simple. What we need to do, like has been said, we need to create more awareness and advocacy. A lot of people in this country do not understand what is this thing called mental illness and what is this thing about mental health. So once we are able to create awareness and advocacy, like the way we have been running campaigns on malaria, campaigns on HIV, campaigns on cancer, we need to do such campaigns, even road shows about mental illness, okay? And we need to do more capacity building. The way we have community health workers all the way to the grassroots, being able to identify people with problems of hypertension and diabetes and all those things. This thing about mental illness needs to move away from Madare Hospital and from the psychiatrists and the psychologists. We need to bring everybody on board and have the discussion in all platforms. The politicians, the youth groups, the church leaders, they all have to come on board and talk about this thing. And we need to increase funding and investment in mental health. That's the only way we are going to achieve proper mental health.
Thank you so much, Dr. Michelle, last but not least.
Yeah, absolutely. It's about awareness, and it's how can we make people aware that, about mental health, which is, we all have mental health. We talk about physical health. This is mental health. So it's about breaking the stigma. So yes, in our capacity as mental wellness practitioners, be whatever we are, we need to be, singing our own trumpets and trying to spread awareness there. But that's just, individual by individual. It needs to also be a collective. I mean, October the 10th is World Mental Wellness Day. So in an ideal world, there would be a campaign now on media, on October the 10th and that October month. Media stations would be talking about mental health. On the TV, there would be billboards, there would be important people, role models that people look up to. They would be talking about their own mental health. The only way we're going to take the stigma away is that everybody realizes that we all have ups and downs. It's totally normal. So we have to make it normal. And we do that by talking and sharing our own experiencing, sharing our stories, and highlighting important days like mental wellness and publicizing it. And as another panelist said, there needs to be more money. So it needs to be prioritized. So there's more money so that there can be more services. And people need to know about their services. In Kenya, there are services, but not everybody knows about them. So they need to be publicized so that everybody knows that if I'm having a problem with domestic violence or I'm not feeling, I'm feeling depressed, they know where to go and they can access it. So it's about prioritizing and letting everybody understand that, yes, we all have to think about our mental health, and it's okay if we're not feeling good. Okay, thank you.
Actually, just a quick one on that, and I mean, anybody can jump in here. The aspect or the notion that it's okay not to be okay. How does that actually then translate? If I was to say, I'm just picking up what you said, Michelle. Like I said, I'd ask anybody to actually jump into here. Yeah, is it okay? I mean, people say it's okay not to be okay. How does that translate? How are people to get to understand that?
Well, my job, I work on positivity. I work on mental wellness. I do, day challenges. I do workshops. I work with the doctors in the hospitals to improve their mental healthiness. But I always stand there and I say, guys, I'm standing here, talking about positivity, talking about wellness. I run, I do yoga, I meditate. But sometimes I don't feel great. I have my ups, I have my downs. And that is totally normal. It's being human. So if we think about role models, we think about people that we read about, we can often hear that they have, great role models that we look up to. They all have their ups and downs. That is what being human is about. So it's about acknowledging that it's okay. And what I always say in my presentations is, what actually defines a positive person is the fact that when they are feeling down, they have the tools and the resources to accept, and this goes into mindfulness. So what I do if I'm feeling down, I accept my emotions. Don't squash them. If we squash them, we'll end up shouting at somebody or whatever. It will come out in another way. So what I do is I accept so there's a lovely technique, I'll do it quickly. Rain by Tara Brach. I recognize what I'm feeling. I acknowledge it. High sadness, high whatever the emotion is. I investigate. I go inside. Where am I feeling it? What does it look like? I nurture. What is my body asking for? Because that's what our emotions are. They are signposts, and our body is telling us something. So in my case, with the joys of online schooling my 2 energetic boys, often when I'm feeling stressed or anxious and I do the rain, what my body wants is some me time. What my body wants is 5 minutes of silence, a cup of tea in the garden or whatever. So very simple technique, rain. Recognize your emotion, acknowledge it, investigate, nurture it. What does your body need? And that's the important thing. And then you bounce back, because emotions need motion. So if we acknowledge our emotions, what happens is, like a matatu, that emotion goes and another emotion comes. So it's really important to acknowledge, I'm angry, I'm anxious. Emotions are never bad. And I always tell the people I work with, emotions are not bad. And then we decide, we choose what we do with it. So it's having those tools and skills to do that. But we never say emotions are bad. It's our body reacting to our environment.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. I'm going to treat that as your parting shot. I'm going to move to Daktari. Do you have any parting shot, anything you want to add to the whole conversation? It doesn't have to be specifically about the questions I've asked. Anything you'd like to add, you'd like to leave the viewers with? And then Annabelle, I'm going to come back to you as well.
Maybe just as a rejoin on what Michelle was talking about, when you said it's okay not to be okay. When you're talking about mental illness, most people tend to think that it is a preserve of a few people out there, that it cannot happen to them. But the message we should be telling people is that, yes, like Michelle has said, it is okay not to be okay, in this sense that emotions are part of our day-to-day life. Every human being has mood swings, have emotions, they get stressed. But the problem comes in when you're not able to accept that these things are part of our life, when we are not able to cope. So you'll find many a times that when you tell somebody you are stressed, most people will run away from that. Or when you tell somebody you know, this during our normal conversation, nobody wants to be told that you look depressed, you know. But these things happen to each and every one of us at some point in our lives, okay? So we need to get a way of embracing these emotions and these feelings and understanding that they do happen and they can happen to anyone. And we can talk about them without having to stigmatize people. And we can always bounce back. The fact that today you're feeling low, you have the blues, does not mean that tomorrow will not be a brighter day. So it is good to talk about it and seek help where necessary. And basically what I would want as we finish off is if we could have more and more platforms to discuss about mental health, so that it will get to the mama mboga, so that when that mama mboga feels tired and does not sleep at night and is not able to work, she knows that there is help out there and something could be going on before it gets to a situation whereby the next minute she's being seen stripping naked in the streets. We need to get more platforms to be able to reach out to the masses and tell them these signs and symptoms that they need to look out for early in advance before the diseases the illness sets in. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Annabelle, what is your parting shot?
Yeah, first of all, I would love to thank you for such conversations. This is what keeps mental health going, and this is what is going to bring change. And I would love each one to remember that mental health is not a destination, but a process. And this is a process that we have to take together, not only as psychologists or psychiatrists. Let us take it together as a community. And as you reach out to your neighbor and that becomes a process, we are able to reach out to the whole country and to the whole globe. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Annabelle. And in recognition of what how we sort of started the show, I'd like to appreciate you all for taking the time to join us this evening on Great Leadership Live. It's been a very eye-opening conversation. The rain aspect is very interesting. I'm not saying that rain is something I've never come across. You know what I mean? But yeah, it's been a pleasure talking to all of you, and thank you so much for all the insights. It's been absolutely amazing. Martin, you look stressed. You see, he's stressed. His mic is off, so you know he's stressed.
Let me tell you, today has been a heavy day. I've had a webinar in the morning. We've moved office. I barely made it here when we had to go online and all. But yes, I'll close as usual with a few quotes here and there. Let me start with one over here. I'll share my screen. That's from Mr. Bill Clinton. Oops, where are we? Oh, there we go. Mental illness is nothing to be ashamed of, but stigma and bias shame all of us. I've got another one, a few. Oops. What's this arrangement here today? There we go. What mental health needs is more sunlight, more candor, and more unashamed conversation. That's from a famous actress called Glenn Close. We've got mental health is not a destination, but a process. It's about how you drive, not where you are going. And last, don't let your struggle become your identity. That's from Unknown. And I think with these few quotes, I'll say good night to all of you. Thank you very much. And to those watching us, good night and see you next week, same time, same place. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah.